Hi, welcome to the Data Space podcast. On this podcast, we hand over the microphone to the builders and the doors of the Data Space ecosystem. We were at the Data Space Symposium in March, diving into the heart of the ecosystem where data spaces take shape. During this event, Alex took the microphone to capture insights on the fly from key players of the field. In this episode, we meet with Olivier Dion, CEO of the OneCub startup, senior technical advisor for the Digital New Deal think tank, co-founder of aNewGovernance International Association, and project owner for the Eona-X Data Space. Olivier was here at the very beginning of the data space ecosystem, and he tells us about how it materialized and what its current challenges are. The Data Space podcast is sponsored by Startin'blox. Startin'blox provides strategic consulting and technical deployment for data spaces, guiding organizations from the initial vision to scalable, interoperable infrastructures. Their unique value proposition focuses on usability and business impact, offering intuitive interfaces to ensure data spaces are practical and widely adopted.
Hi, Olivier. Can you tell us a bit who you are and what you're doing here at the Data Space Symposium?
Hello everyone, so I'm Olivier Dion. I'm an entrepreneur in data and data spaces now. I've been interested in data sharing for almost 15 years now. I started in France with the beginning of open data. Then I got involved in the GDPR and especially the right to portability. To me, it's kind of an ancestor to data spaces. Then, naturally, I got into the data strategy and data spaces, where we are today. I'm still an entrepreneur. I help the data spaces to grow, but I became also a policymaker. I help define policies for sharing data at the French level, with other member states and with the European Commission. So I'm interested in both aspects, the governance of what we are doing and the building of concrete projects in different sectors.
Very interesting. So you say you're an entrepreneur and also kind of a lawmaker. I don't know if the expression makes sense. What is your business model, or how do you make a living? How do you make money?
First, it's hard to make a living today in data spaces. I don't see, you know, you know why.
I know.
No, it's to me, it's more than just one business model, one single business model that people would have to find in data spaces. It's an economical system. We are talking about an infrastructure connecting multiple kinds of business models. For instance, we see that in many data spaces, the public sector is key. You get a mix between public sector and private sector. And of course, the business model for the public sector is very different from the one you can develop in the private sector. So I don't see it as one single business model. I see it as a holistic economical system. And in all of this, I've tried different things for my startup. Most of my revenue today is consulting. I would hope to switch more to products. We're getting there, but I've been in the past. I've been too early on this topic, too fast at getting some private investments, building products without having a market to support it, and it was too fast. And I switched direction. Now I help build it. I get revenue from consulting, and I see where I can build products that fit into it, not that want to do everything, but that fill the gaps of what is already existing.
You mentioned that you did kind of a transition between data portability and GDPR and data spaces. So I understand obviously the logic between the two, but concretely, what kind of sucked you in the data space ecosystem, and what did you first start to work on, for example?
If you take the right to portability, and I spent years to evangelize, to co-build with many people the right to portability within the GDPR and to evangelize on it. Frankly, it did not work as we planned. Now I understand more why. I would say that we have strong digital policies and regulations in Europe about data and AI, can extend it. Most of the regulations that we do, and that is normal, they are, we could say, defensive regulations, like the GDPR, the DMA, DSA, even AI Act. Most of it is do's and don'ts, but mostly don'ts, and mostly targeted first at American or Chinese players, at external players. And what we have today with data spaces, and what got me into data spaces, is we are the regulation framework is an offensive regulation framework, like the DGA and the DA, Data Governance Act and Data Act. They are not there to say, okay, we don't want big players to do this and that. We are building a trust framework for creating value, and I like it more. I was a bit stuck in the GDPR right to portability storytelling, because the GDPR fundamentally was a defensive regulation. It was when I was trying to evangelize and to push it to big groups from any sector in France and in Europe, I was put in the hands of the legal departments, and this tiny piece of text trapped inside the GDPR that was like extraterrestrial objects, the right to portability. It was there to create value, but it was not perceived as value creation. It was trapped into a bigger text that was a risk, seen as a risk. What I like with the data spaces is that we create an alternative to existing models, and an offensive one. The counterpart of this is that it's very new. It's hard to make our place for instance, in the first pages of the national or European press and media. It's easier to talk about how to regulate big tech than to propose an alternative. It's new, it's complex at first.
Can you maybe provide a definition to what you mean by offensive, or what is changing with the data space approach that was not present in the GDPR approach, for instance?
To me, sharing data is far from new. Open data 15 years ago were there already. What we understand now is that a lot of data won't be shared by companies and administrations if there are no safeguards attached to it. Data controllers want to keep some form of control over data they share, otherwise they won't share it. They understand that it could create value, but it's too sensitive, it's too complex, strategical. They don't want to share it. The only way to get them to share data and create value collectively is to offer them a framework, a trust framework for sharing data. So there is trust on one side, and the other side is an infrastructure that can lower the cost of sharing data, transaction costs. And lowering the cost of sharing data, it's about lowering the technical costs, the business costs, the legal costs of sharing data. So that's what we are trying to achieve within the data spaces. And what is very new to me is not the fact of sharing data, is the scale of what we are trying to achieve. Trying to align 27 countries and all industries at the same time over a short time span for, let's say, 5 to 10 years. It seems long when you are into it, but it's to align at this scale. It's very short. That is very new to me. Data has been shared for very long, mostly by big tech players that are not based on the same paradigm. They share data, but they are the sole controller of the governance of it. They decide, for instance, on the business rules. They decide on the technical rules, and if they switch it off at some point, no one can say anything about it. They are in total control. What is also new with data spaces, so there is a scale, and there is also the governance mechanisms. The idea is that the decisions of how to share data should be collective and not in the hands of the big technological players. I like this idea a lot.
And so by offensive, if I try to summarize, you mean operationalized, like something that we can actually deploy, and operationalized at scale. Is that a good summary, or am I missing something?
Yes, but also the trust part. There is an ecosystem of trust to build, meaning that, for instance, we created with the Data Governance Act the concept of data intermediaries that are neutral tools, that they are middleware tools, therefore helping to share data, and we want those tools not to interfere with the upper layer, which is creating value with data. So it's all of this is creating a trust framework and an interoperability framework for sharing data.
So you mentioned that today, at least, you mostly sell consultancy. Can you mention a few projects that you work on? I know that you work a bit on product. Can you
And a bit on product too. Yes.
can you tell us a bit more about it?
Today, the main data space initiatives I'm involved in are the first one is Eona-X, so mobility and tourism. The second one is the space data space. I work with space industry players and with the European Space Agency. And the, sorry. And the last one, very recent, it's the legal data space, gathering the legal tech community that also wants to share data. I've got different roles depending on the project. For instance, in the Eona-X mobility and tourism data space, I'm offering consulting, but we are also developing certain parts of the infrastructure um, with a focus on personal data sharing. So we are building, it's a pilot at this stage, but we are building a tool called My Travel Connect that helps you share your personal data as a traveler through consent with trust safeguards around it. So this way, I reconciliate my life in the data spaces and my previous life in the GDPR world and personal data. So that's what we built in Eona-X. In the space sector, it's we are not at the operational stage now. We're trying to convince and gather a community. So it will be a longer term, and the legal data space is very new. In all of these three data spaces, there is a new layer that we have to add in all data spaces is AI agents that almost all data spaces I see today in any sector, they want to see how AI can fit into the data space model. And so I'm also working on this a lot.
Very interesting. And what would you say are your main challenges on those three projects, or on one of them as you're comfortable?
One of them is evangelization. We still need to convince a lot. So I did not mention it yet, but I'm also the CTO of a French think tank called Digital New Deal. So we published a lot of papers about data spaces, and the most recent one is about generative AI and data spaces. And we proposed a model to make it fit together, generative AI and data spaces. I can give an example. We are promoting with Eona-X, so mobility and tourism data space. The idea, we are planning on building an AI agent layer to help the tourism and mobility sectors build AI travel assistants based on the data space. So those travel assistants will be able to reuse data shared through the data space, which means that they will also need to comply with the governance rules of the data space. And I like this idea a lot. We are gathering a sector that will define its rules, its governance rules, safety, ethical rules, and so on, that are acceptable in the use of AI agents and assistants. I like it a lot. And the other thing I like a lot is it's always hard to pitch data sharing in itself. We've all been confronted to this. It stays theoretical at this stage a lot. When you you change, you tweak the storytelling, and you start this storytelling through, for instance, AI travel assistance, then you understand why you need to access private data. And one of the use cases we promote with this Eona-X AI layer is, imagine you've got a flight that has been cancelled, and you ask your AI travel assistant to reorganize your flights, not your flight, your whole trip. It means that you need to give access to your assistants to your different travel services accounts. You give your consent for accessing certain kinds of personal data, and you also need to let this travel assistant act on your behalf to rebook parts of your trip: a plane ticket, train tickets, hotel, car rental, restaurants, whatever, but to act on your behalf at reorganizing it. So then you understand why you need a trust framework to access data, and then you understand better data spaces. So now it's to people who don't know data spaces, I prefer to start from the concrete use cases, new use cases that we can do with data spaces, and all the rest is too theoretical and it doesn't work.
Thank you. Where would you say that data spaces are today, and where do you think that, how do you think they will evolve in the coming years?
I'm very happy the way we evolved over the past few years is impressive to me. You have seen data space initiatives in all sectors all over Europe now. I still think what we are proposing to the larger community, it's still too complex. It doesn't talk to people. That's why I'm talking about storytelling. I think we still need to work more on the simplification of the standards and technological building blocks. It's good that we had a burgeoning community and different multiple initiatives, but now we need to talk more and reunite and simplify what we are doing. It's starting to get very complex, and it can be a hurdle in the next few years. That's one aspect, and the other aspect now, one of my main focus is about the end products. What is a data space? What you see, the user interface of a data space. What does it look like? And I think with fundamentally it's decentralization effort we are talking about. I go for this, and of course I accept this, but at some point we need to present something that is understandable, and some parts of this huge infrastructure will be a bit centralized, at least in the front end, in the user interface. It's okay with me. If it makes it more acceptable, it's okay with me.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, on the interface part, I could not agree more. And this is why we are working on the Data Space browser. We are convinced that we need to provide user-friendly interfaces to interact with data spaces, and it's a bit lacking today.
We focus a lot on backend elements, on conceptual models, and maybe it's time to focus more on front end and still reuse all the backend technologies we developed over the past few years.
For sure. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
Thanks a
for
lot.
joining us on the Data Space podcast. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Olivier and gained valuable insights into the evolving world of data spaces. If you need intuitive application or business-focused approach for your data space, feel free to reach out to our sponsor at Startin'blox.com. Don't forget to share the podcast if you enjoyed it, and follow us for more discussion with the key players shaping the future of data spaces. Until next time, happy data sharing.